I discovered my best friend of 10 years had been secretly dating my estranged brother for over 3 years while publicly flaunting her perfect relationship with another man. When I confronted her with evidence at her birthday dinner, in front of our entire friend group, she broke down crying, claimed I was ruining her life over a misunderstanding, and now everyone's divided about whether I'm justified or if I went nuclear on a situation that wasn't my business. I've lost my best friend, half my social circle thinks I'm a vindictive bitch, and I can't stop wondering if I made a massive mistake. For context, I'm 28F and my best friend Jocelyn, 29F, has been in my life since college. We were inseparable, roommates for years, maids of honor at each other's future weddings, or so we thought, and the person I trusted most in the world after my family fell apart. I've been estranged from my brother Nathan, 31M, for almost 5 years following our parents' deaths, and the ugly probate battle that followed. Jocelyn knew everything about that situation. She held me through countless nights of sobbing, helped me draft difficult emails to lawyers, and repeatedly assured me that Nathan was toxic and I was better off without him. Last month, I decided to surprise Jocelyn by stopping by her apartment with coffee and pastries on a Sunday morning. We had plans to meet for brunch later, but I finished my morning run early and thought it would be nice to catch up at her place first. I still have her spare key from when I watched her cat last summer, so I let myself in, calling out her name. The apartment seemed empty, but I heard the shower running. I put the coffee and pastries on her kitchen counter and noticed 2 wine glasses in the sink, along with men's boots by the door that I didn't recognize. Jocelyn had been dating Ryan, 32M, for about 2 years, and I assumed he had stayed over. I was about to text her that I'd come back later when I heard a deep laugh from the bathroom that sent chills down my spine. It wasn't Ryan's laugh. It was Nathan's. I'd know my brother's laugh anywhere, even after years of not speaking. Before I could process what was happening, the bathroom door opened, and out walked Nathan, with a towel around his waist. He froze when he saw me. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then Jocelyn appeared behind him, wrapped in her robe, her face draining of color when she saw me. "Ellie," she whispered. "I can explain." "How long?" I managed to ask, my voice surprisingly steady despite feeling like the floor was collapsing beneath me. They exchanged a look that told me everything. This wasn't the first time. This wasn't an accident or a one-night stand. This was established. 3 years, Nathan finally said. 3 years. While Jocelyn was dating Ryan? While she was listening to me cry about Nathan? While she was telling me I was better off without my brother in my life? I turned and walked out without another word. My phone immediately started buzzing with texts from Jocelyn, begging me to talk to her, claiming she'd been trying to find the right time to tell me that it was complicated. I blocked her number. For a week, I went completely dark. I called in sick to work, ignored all social media, and just processed. Then I started putting pieces together. Photos on Instagram where I could now recognize my brother's watch in the corner of a solo vacation picture Jocelyn had posted. Times when she was unreachable because she was visiting her parents that aligned with weekends I knew Nathan was in town. The sudden recommendation 2 years ago that our friend group start going to a new bar that, in retrospect, was conveniently located near Nathan's apartment. The more I thought about it, the more I realized this wasn't just a relationship they'd hidden from me. This was an elaborate, long-term deception that had required countless lies. And through it all, Jocelyn had been playing the role of my supportive best friend while sleeping with the person she knew had hurt me most in the world. Meanwhile, poor Ryan had no idea he was in a fake relationship. According to social media, they were still together, posting couple photos and making plans for a summer vacation. I had been planning to just cut them both out silently, but then came Jocelyn's birthday dinner. A mutual friend texted asking if I was still coming, concerned because I hadn't RSVP'd. In that moment, something in me snapped. I decided I wasn't going to be the one to slink away in shame. I hadn't done anything wrong. So I went to the birthday dinner. I arrived late, dressed nicely, with a gift bag in hand. Everyone seemed surprised but relieved to see me. Jocelyn looked terrified. Ryan greeted me with a warm hug, completely oblivious. I waited until after dinner, when everyone was giving toasts. When it came to my turn, I stood up, my heart pounding. To Jocelyn, I said, raising my glass. My best friend of 10 years. The person I trusted most in the world. I could see her face growing pale. "You've always been so good at keeping secrets. Like the fact that you've been sleeping with my brother Nathan for the past 3 years while dating Ryan." The silence that followed was deafening. Then Ryan said, "What are you talking about?" Instead of answering, I pulled out printed screenshots of text messages between Jocelyn and Nathan that I'd found on our shared cloud account. We'd set it up years ago for trip photos and never disconnected it. Messages that made their relationship undeniable. I handed them to Ryan. The restaurant erupted in chaos. Jocelyn was sobbing, Ryan was demanding answers, and our friends were either trying to calm everyone down or sitting in shocked silence. I left in the middle of it all, feeling oddly hollow rather than vindicated. That was 2 weeks ago. Since then, I've received dozens of messages. Some people think I was absolutely right to expose the truth, others think I humiliated Jocelyn unnecessarily and should have handled it privately. Ryan broke up with Jocelyn and has reached out to thank me. Nathan sent a long email that I haven't opened yet. Jocelyn has tried to contact me through every possible channel, alternating between apologies and accusations that I've ruined her life over what she calls a complicated situation you don't understand. I keep replaying everything in my mind. Jocelyn was like a sister to me. She knew exactly how much Nathan's betrayal had broken me, yet she chose to secretly build a relationship with him while pretending to support me. But did I go too far with the public exposure? Should I have confronted them privately? I don't know if I made the right call, and I can't tell if my anger justified my actions. So, Reddit. Ida? First update. I want to start by thanking everyone for the overwhelming support and advice. I genuinely didn't expect so many responses, and reading through your perspectives has been both validating and eye-opening. To answer some common questions, yes, Ryan and I have talked more since the dinner. No, I haven't spoken directly with Jocelyn or Nathan yet. And yes, I'm in therapy, started well before this situation, thankfully. A lot of you asked for more context about my estrangement from Nathan, which is fair since it's central to why Jocelyn's betrayal cut so deep. Our parents died within months of each other 5 years ago, Dad from a sudden heart attack and Mom from what I can only describe as a broken heart masked as pneumonia. They didn't have a formal will, just some handwritten instructions that became a point of contention. Nathan and I had always been close despite a 3-year age gap, but grief affects people in unpredictable ways. Nathan was executor of the estate and started making unilateral decisions immediately. He sold our childhood home without consulting me, claiming Mom had verbally told him she wanted him to have the proceeds to pay off his law school debt. He distributed family heirlooms before I even had a chance to see what was there. When I protested, he became hostile, accusing me of being greedy and disrespectful to our parents' memory. The breaking point came when I discovered he'd taken money from our parents' retirement account before it was properly processed through probate. When confronted, he claimed it was a loan he intended to pay back, but the legal battle that followed revealed a pattern of financial decisions that benefited him at my expense. We eventually reached a settlement that was nowhere near equitable, but I was emotionally exhausted and just wanted it over with. Throughout all of this, Jocelyn was my rock. She helped me find a lawyer, listened to hours of tearful rants, and repeatedly assured me I wasn't crazy for feeling betrayed by Nathan. Family doesn't treat family like this, she would say. You deserve better than a brother who would steal from you. She even helped me draft the final email cutting ties with Nathan, where I told him I needed space and didn't see a path to reconciliation unless he acknowledged the harm he'd done. That's why discovering their relationship felt like being stabbed in the back with my own knife. This wasn't just any friend dating any estranged sibling, this was the person who had witnessed firsthand the depth of my pain, who had articulated why Nathan's actions were unforgivable, who had helped me establish the boundary that she was secretly crossing. After my last post, I decided to unblock Jocelyn temporarily to see what she'd been trying to tell me. The messages were a mix of desperate apologies and subtle blame shifting. I never meant to hurt you. It just happened and then we didn't know how to tell you. We were going to tell you so many times but were afraid of how you'd react. I guess we were right to be worried. I know you feel betrayed but I've been caught in the middle trying to help you both heal. Nathan isn't the monster you think he is. Ryan and I were basically over anyway. We were staying together for appearances while figuring out next steps. That last one was particularly interesting since I met up with Ryan for coffee yesterday, and he was completely blindsided by both the cheating and the breakup. According to him, they had been discussing moving in together recently. He showed me text messages from just 3 days before the birthday dinner where Jocelyn was sending him apartment listings. Ryan also revealed something that made my blood run cold. Apparently, Jocelyn had told him numerous times that I was emotionally unstable and prone to dramatic outbursts, especially regarding my family. She had painted me as someone who exaggerated situations and couldn't be trusted when I was upset. Ryan admitted he'd always found this characterization strange given what he observed of me, but had no reason to doubt his girlfriend's assessment of her best friend. I realized Jocelyn had been actively undermining my credibility with Ryan, creating a preemptive defense in case I ever discovered her relationship with Nathan. It was calculated in a way that makes me question every aspect of our friendship. As for Nathan, I finally opened his email. It was long and meandering, but the gist was that he and Jocelyn initially reconnected when she reached out to hear his side of our family dispute. He claimed she started as a mediator of sorts, trying to understand both perspectives with the hope of eventually reconciling us. According to Nathan, they developed feelings unexpectedly, and by the time they realized what was happening, they didn't know how to tell me without it seeming like a betrayal. So they just didn't. Nathan also wrote that Jocelyn had been working on him to make amends with me, and that he's come to regret many of his actions during the probate process. He attributes this change of heart to Jocelyn's influence, which feels like another manipulation tactic. He ended by asking to meet in person, saying there are things about our parents' estate that he needs to tell me face to face. I haven't responded to either of them. Part of me wants answers, but another part feels like any explanation they offer will just be another carefully crafted narrative designed to minimize their betrayal and manipulate my feelings. In the meantime, our friend group has fractured predictably. Most people are appalled by Jocelyn's deception, particularly the overlapping relationships, but a few mutual friends think I should at least hear her out. One friend, who I've always suspected had feelings for Jocelyn, suggested that I'm punishing Jocelyn for falling in love and that family estrangements shouldn't dictate who people can date. I pointed out that my issue isn't that she dated my brother, it's that she actively participated in deliberate deception while pretending to be my closest confidant. So that's where things stand. I'm still processing, still angry, and still uncertain about next steps. But reading your comments has helped me feel less crazy for being devastated by this betrayal. I'll update again if/when I decide to confront them directly. Second update. Thank you again for all the comments, messages, and awards. I'm genuinely moved by how invested you all are in this situation. Reading through your perspectives has been both comforting and clarifying during what continues to be an emotional roller coaster. A lot has happened since my last update. After careful consideration and a very long session with my therapist, I decided to meet with Nathan. Many of you advised against this, concerned it might be another manipulation tactic, and honestly, I shared those fears. But my therapist suggested that regardless of his motives, getting answers might help me process everything and move forward on my terms. We met at a neutral coffee shop, and I brought my boyfriend Theo, 30M, as both support and witness. I hadn't mentioned Theo much in my previous posts because he's been traveling for work, but he flew back immediately when all this went down and has been incredibly supportive. Nathan arrived alone, looking more disheveled than I'd seen him since our parents' funeral. The confident, sometimes arrogant brother I remembered seemed diminished somehow. He tried to hug me, which I deflected into an awkward handshake. After brief introductions with Theo, we sat down, and I just said, I'm here to listen, but that doesn't mean I'm ready to forgive either of you. What followed was a 3-hour conversation that forced me to reconsider some, though certainly not all, of my assumptions. Nathan admitted to making terrible decisions during the probate process, explaining that he'd been drowning in debt and panic. He showed me documents proving he had indeed paid back the money he took from the retirement account, plus interest, though this had happened after our legal battle ended. He also revealed something I hadn't known. He'd used a significant portion of his inheritance to cover Mom's medical bills that insurance had denied, bills I never saw because he was handling everything while I was finishing graduate school. This doesn't excuse his actions or the way he froze me out of decisions, but it did provide context I hadn't been privy to. When I asked why he never told me any of this, he said he was too proud to admit how badly he'd messed up his finances and then too ashamed to walk back the narrative once it was established. As for his relationship with Jocelyn, his version largely matched what he'd written in the email. According to Nathan, Jocelyn approached him about a year after our estrangement, initially to understand his side of the story. This evolved into occasional coffee meetings that they both kept from me, then into something more serious. He claims they both felt increasingly trapped by the deception but were afraid of losing me completely. The most disturbing part was when I asked about Ryan. Nathan looked genuinely confused and said he'd been under the impression that Jocelyn and Ryan had an open relationship that Ryan was fully aware of. He seemed shocked when I told him this wasn't the case, that Ryan had been completely blindsided by the revelation. This suggested either Nathan was lying to me now or Jocelyn had been lying to both of us all along. I decided to test this theory. After the meeting with Nathan, I invited Ryan for dinner with Theo and me. Over the course of the evening, we compared timelines and stories. It quickly became apparent that Jocelyn had been spinning elaborate, contradictory narratives to maintain her double life. To Ryan, she had described Nathan as her friend from grad school on the few occasions Ryan had questioned who she was texting or meeting. She had told Ryan I was weird about male friends and would read too much into their friendship, which was why she kept it low-key around me. She had convinced Ryan that their relationship needed to stay off certain social media because of her privacy concerns related to her job, which explained why they were Instagram official but rarely appeared on her more private Facebook account, which was mainly college friends, including Nathan. To Nathan, she had apparently claimed that she and Ryan were casually dating at first, then later that they had an understanding about seeing other people, and finally that they were only staying together for appearances while they unwound their entwined lives. None of this was true according to Ryan, who had been planning to propose later this year. As the three of us mapped out all the lies, a picture emerged of Jocelyn as someone far more calculated than any of us had realized. She hadn't just been hiding a relationship, she'd been actively manipulating three separate people, playing us against each other when necessary, all while maintaining her image as the supportive, honest friend/girlfriend/partner. Ryan had brought screenshots of conversations that made my stomach turn, including one where Jocelyn had talked him out of inviting Nathan to a party because Ellie might cause a scene. She had effectively used my pain, which she was secretly exacerbating, as a tool to keep her worlds separate. After Ryan left, Theo pointed out something I hadn't fully processed. Jocelyn had positioned herself at the center of my family drama in a way that gave her extraordinary power and information. She knew exactly what Nathan and I thought of each other because we were both confiding in her separately. She could control the narrative in both directions, potentially prolonging our estrangement while playing the supportive role in both our lives. This realization led me down a rabbit hole. I began reviewing years of conversations, looking for patterns I'd missed. I found dozens of instances where Jocelyn had subtly discouraged me from reaching out to Nathan. "He's not ready to hear you yet," she would say, or from what I hear around campus, "he's still pretty bitter about everything." Nathan and I have mutual acquaintances from when we attended the same university. I had trusted her read on these situations because I thought she was putting my interests first. Even more disturbing, I discovered that Jocelyn had been the one to initially suggest I check our parents' retirement accounts for irregularities. She had pointed me toward the very discovery that became the breaking point with Nathan. Had she intentionally escalated our conflict? It seemed paranoid to think so, but at this point, I couldn't rule anything out. I was still processing all of this when Jocelyn called from a new number I hadn't blocked. Against my better judgment, I answered. She immediately launched into what felt like a rehearsed speech about how sorry she was, how she'd made mistakes but had always cared about both Nathan and me, how she'd been trying to heal our family rift while finding herself caught in an impossible situation. I let her talk, and then simply asked, "Did you tell Ryan that you and Nathan had an open relationship arrangement?" The silence that followed was telling. Finally, she said, "It's complicated. Different people need different versions of the truth sometimes." I hung up and blocked the new number. The next day, I received an email from Jocelyn with the subject line "The Whole Truth This Time." It contained a long confession that essentially admitted to everything we'd pieced together, plus additional manipulations I hadn't even considered. Her justification was that she had genuinely fallen in love with Nathan but couldn't bear to lose me as a friend, so she tried to manage the situation until she could find a way to bring us all together again. Most tellingly, she wrote, "I know I could have handled this better, but part of me was afraid that if you and Nathan reconciled without my help, I would lose my special place in both your lives. I wanted to be the hero who brought the siblings back together. I wanted to be essential to both of you." This admission of using our estrangement for her own emotional benefit was the final straw. I forwarded the email to Nathan and Ryan with a simple message, "FYI. I'm done with this situation." Ryan responded with a single word, "Same." Nathan sent a longer message apologizing again for his role in everything and asking if we could continue working on our relationship separately from the Jocelyn situation. I told him I needed time. Meanwhile, our broader friend group has been imploding as people choose sides. What's been most revealing is how many people have come forward with their own stories of Jocelyn's manipulative behavior once the dam broke. It seems she had been playing similar, though less extreme, games with various friends for years, triangulating relationships and positioning herself as the indispensable connector. So here I am, still processing betrayal but now with a clearer picture of its scope and nature. I've lost my best friend, but increasingly I'm questioning whether she was ever truly my friend at all. I'm cautiously reconnecting with my brother, though that relationship has a long road ahead. And I'm beyond grateful for Theo, who has been my actual rock through all of this. The question now isn't whether I was the asshole for exposing Jocelyn. I think we've established I wasn't, but what to do with all this newfound clarity about the people in my life. There's one more confrontation I'm considering, and I'll update you on that if it happens. Final update. It's been almost 3 months since my last update, and I want to thank everyone who has followed this saga, offered advice, or simply sent supportive messages. Your collective wisdom has been invaluable during what has easily been one of the most disruptive periods of my adult life. After my last post, many of you encouraged me to focus on healing rather than pursuing further confrontations. That was good advice that I partially took. I did prioritize my own well-being and worked extensively with my therapist on processing everything. However, there was one final conversation I needed to have for my own closure. I met with Jocelyn one last time. We met at a park, a public place where neither of us would feel trapped or pressured. I arrived first and watched her approach, the person I had once considered a sister, now essentially a stranger. She looked nervous, which was fair given how our last few interactions had gone. I had prepared what I wanted to say, practicing with Theo and my therapist to ensure I could express myself clearly without being derailed by emotion. When she sat down, I didn't wait for her to launch into explanations or apologies. Instead, I calmly stated, I'm not here to hear more justifications or to punish you further. I'm here because I need to understand one thing: was any of it real? Our friendship, your support, any of it? Because right now, I'm questioning every memory we ever shared. Jocelyn was quiet for a moment, then responded in a way that surprised me with its apparent honesty. She admitted that her friendship with me had been genuine at the beginning. We had connected authentically in college, and she had valued our relationship deeply. But over time, especially after my parents died and the conflict with Nathan began, something shifted. She found herself enjoying the feeling of being needed, of being central to my emotional well-being. When Nathan reached out to her asking about me, she saw an opportunity to become equally important to him. It wasn't calculated at first, she said. But once I realized I could be the connection between you two, it felt powerful. Then feelings developed with Nathan, and I panicked. I knew I should tell you, but every time I considered it, I could see exactly how much it would hurt you, how much I would lose. So I kept putting it off, telling myself I was protecting you while I figured out a solution. As for Ryan, she acknowledged that she had used him as cover, a way to maintain her image while pursuing what she really wanted. I told myself he wasn't that invested, that he wouldn't be that hurt, she said, her voice small. I convinced myself of whatever I needed to believe to keep going. The conversation continued for nearly 2 hours. I asked every question that had been haunting me, and to her credit, Jocelyn answered without defensive deflection. The picture that emerged was of someone who had started with good intentions but gradually succumbed to the intoxication of being needed, of holding power in relationships, of controlling narratives. She hadn't set out to become a manipulator, but small decisions had compounded until deception became her default mode. Near the end of our conversation, she asked if there was any path to forgiveness, any way we could salvage even a fragment of our friendship. I told her the truth: I didn't know. The trust was shattered so comprehensively that I couldn't imagine ever confiding in her again. But I also acknowledged that people can change if they genuinely want to and do the work. I hope you could help understanding why you did this, I said. Not for my sake or for any potential reconciliation, but for yourself and for any future relationships. This pattern will follow you until you address it. We parted without animosity but also without false promises. It felt like closing a chapter properly rather than leaving it with dog-eared pages. As for Nathan, we've been slowly rebuilding some semblance of a sibling relationship. We started with short coffee meetings, then progressed to occasional family dinners with Theo present. Nathan has made genuine efforts to make amends, including returning several family heirlooms he had previously claimed and being transparent about the remaining estate matters. One particularly meaningful moment came when he gave me our mother's journal, which I hadn't known existed. I should have shared this with you years ago, he said. I was afraid of what you'd think of me if you read her thoughts about those last months. The journal revealed that our mother had indeed discussed certain distributions with Nathan, including wanting him to use some money for his law school debt. However, she had also expressed clear wishes for many items that had never made it to me. Reading her words was painful but clarifying. Nathan hadn't completely fabricated her wishes, but he had selectively implemented them in ways that benefited him. When I discussed this with Nathan, he broke down in a way I hadn't seen since we were children. He admitted that grief and financial pressure had warped his judgment, that he had convinced himself he was honoring Mom's wishes while ignoring the parts that didn't align with what he wanted or needed. It wasn't a complete excuse, but it was a human explanation that I could understand, even if I couldn't fully forgive yet. The estate issues have now been properly settled, with Nathan voluntarily redistributing certain assets in recognition of the imbalance in our original settlement. We're not best friends, and I doubt we ever will be as close as we once were, but we're finding a new equilibrium that acknowledges both our shared history and the very real breach of trust that occurred. As for Ryan, he and I have maintained a casual friendship. We both experienced similar betrayals from Jocelyn, which created an unusual bond. He started dating someone new and seems to be healing well from the whole ordeal. The broader friend group has largely settled, with most people distancing themselves from Jocelyn after hearing the full story. A few mutuals still maintain relationships with her, which created some awkward social navigations initially, but we've all developed an unspoken agreement to avoid discussing her when we're together. Theo has been my constant through all of this, proving himself to be exactly the partner I needed during crisis. We've actually started talking about marriage, having come through this situation with a deeper appreciation for honest communication and genuine support. The contrast between his straightforward love and Jocelyn's complicated manipulations has been stark and educational. The most significant change, though, has been internal. I've found myself becoming more discerning about relationships, more attuned to authenticity versus performance. I'm less willing to accept convenient narratives without question, even from those closest to me. Some might see this as becoming more cynical, but I view it as a hard-earned wisdom. I've also learned to trust my instincts more. Looking back, there were dozens of moments where something felt off about Jocelyn's behavior or statements, but I dismissed those feelings because I trusted her more than I trusted myself. Never again. Perhaps most importantly, I've recognized that while betrayal changes you, it doesn't have to define you. For a while, I worried this experience would leave me permanently unable to trust, permanently suspicious of others' motives. But that's not what's happened. Instead, I've become more intentional about where I place my trust, more appreciative when it's honored, and more resilient when it's not. So that's where I'll leave this story. Not with a perfect Hollywood ending where everyone learns their lesson and relationships are magically restored, but with a messy, complicated, real-life resolution where some bonds are strengthened, others are severed, and everyone moves forward changed by what happened. Thank you all for being witnesses to this chapter of my life, for your advice, support, and occasional necessary reality checks. If there's a lesson in all of this for others, perhaps it's simply to trust your gut when relationships don't add up, to value transparency over comfortable lies, and to remember that while betrayal is painful, it's not the end of your story, just the end of a chapter.